Test, test. Oh, I bet you can hear that. Test, test. Yes,
Oh,
that's what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so if you guys could just confirm that you can hear me. Feeling good. Better late than never. Okay. So, we're going to do a mini session today because we lost some time, but if needed, as needed, we will. I'll do another session to cover whatever we miss. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a box of Ukon. I'm going to lift my laptop up, have my Ukon double as a laptop stand. There we go. And let's dive in. So basically, I was given, I think, a bit of a tall task today, and I'm excited about it. But basically, I recently hit 6A. I'm at 103 Enagic sales. And so I was asked sort of, basically to say, hey, what did I do? What was my way to get to this point? In particular, the question was centered around the fact that I actually don't do Enagic very much. I don't spend very much of my time doing Enagic. I don't think I started about 6 months ago, and so my goal, and actually when I started, my goal was, I had a couple goals, but one of them was not to take any longer than 6 months to get the 6A, and honestly, I barely made it. I squeaked in, but I'm still very pleased with it. But I never, in the 6 months I've been doing this, I've never spent, other than I guess when I went to the event in Vegas, because that was kind of being there 24 hours a day, I've never actually spent more than maybe 10 hours in a week on the business. Usually I spend a couple hours, a couple days a week on it. So before I explain how it is that I think I've done that, I want to actually show what I do with the rest of my time. I think it's important because I say this a lot I've said this a lot to people in coaching and on trainings and stuff. I'll say, look, I really don't spend that much time on this business. And I think sometimes people don't believe me. And so if you'll indulge me, hopefully I'm not inviting any more technical challenges. I'm going to give you a little tour real quick. It's night, everybody's gone, but this is actually, this is where I spend most of my time. This is my office. This is my company. I have a marketing company called Zurley. See if you can see. This is our break room. This is our Level Look R machine that everybody drinks from. Here's where a bunch of the agents work. That's where my operations manager works. And we've got some more space over here. This is our upsells area. And some more. This is our billing department and scheduling. And so the reason I show you all this is this business doesn't run itself. This business is what I do most of the time, most of my day. And so Zurley's my main business. So Enagic is really something I had to figure out. Because here's the thing, I hear this a lot. I hear people say, and the reason I wanted to show you guys my office is probably the number one thing I hear from people is, I don't have time. I don't have time to do this business. I don't have time to give this business the attention that it deserves. Well, my position is, you do have time. You just have to figure out how to do the business in a way that doesn't consume a ton of time, and that you're multitasking. And you're not, people say multitasking is not really a thing, and I agree. You can't focus your mind on multiple things at the same time, but you can focus your mind on things that encompass multiple things. You can focus your mind on goals, you can focus your mind on a picture of your life, you can focus your mind on a trajectory for your life, and that can encompass a lot of things. It can encompass, your relationship with your family, it can encompass your professional relationship, it can encompass how you do at your job, it can encompass how you do in developing an income stream outside of your job, it can encompass how you take care of your body and your fitness and your health. So maybe multitasking isn't the word, maybe sort of having a multifaceted method is a better way to say it. And what that means for me is I had to figure out, if I was going to hit 6A in 6 months, which is now not just a hypothetical, I had to figure out, if I really only have an hour or two a day to give to the business, I'm not going to get to 6A in 6 months by just spending an hour or two a day on Facebook trying to generate leads, or spending an hour or two a day calling leads, or spending an hour or two a day going out to the grocery store, or the Natural History Museum, or wherever it is that we bump into people and try to make a friend and get them into our business. None of those methods were going to be remotely functional for me with the small amount of time that I had to give to this business. And frankly, and I'll say this because I think this is just me being open, I think this speaks to maybe what some of us deal with. I have to be pretty careful in my situation. I live in not a very big town. My whole county has about 100,000 people, and my company is one of the larger. We're not like the biggest company in town. SkyWest has their headquarters here. The hospital is pretty big, but we're one of the larger businesses in town. We have a decent profile. I have to be pretty careful not to sort of make my position be about trying to recruit people into a network marketing business. That would be really compromising for my main business and for my kind of position in the community. It would hurt my other business that's frankly my livelihood. So I had to be really, really subtle. I had to be really, really sort of nimble, I think, in how I presented, promoted, even pitched this opportunity and this product without really, for the most part, people knowing that I was doing it. Now, out of the 103 accounts that I've sold, probably about 15 of them have been, and maybe this will surprise people, I don't know, because in a past life I was pretty prominent for online marketing. But out of 103 people or positions on my team, we all know that it's not people, it's positions, because somebody can have a machine and an Ukon, and that's 2 positions. But out of 103 positions, about 15 of those positions, it's actually about 10 people, came through some kind of online marketing. And this is actually, I'm almost shocked to hear myself say this, but 85 to 90% of my efforts have been through actual network marketing. Like I reached out and I talked to people, and it's come through either people I know, or people that know people I know, or people that know people I know, or whatever, you get the idea. And that's just never been my style. It's never been my business. It's never been how even when I was in network marketing before, it's not how I did it. I did it almost anonymously online, people that didn't know me from Adam. And so how have I sort of been able to fly under the radar? And I guess really it's, I remember reading Mike Dillard's book, Magnetic Sponsoring, back in the day, and that sort of concept of attraction marketing, where by the time you're talking about the business, people are already somewhere between intrigued to sold, and they don't even realize what was happening because it almost feels like it was their idea. So here are kind of the ways that I would say I've accomplished that over the last 6 months. First of all, and this is kind of maybe a cliche, but it's been especially important for me. Be a product of the product. And the great thing about this business is right here. Every day I go to work, or even on weekends, I walk around. These are each 2 quarts. So every morning I fill up 4 quarts, 1 gallon of 9.5 Kangen water. And I have these with me. And throughout the day I drink a gallon of this water. And, you know, that is a major conversation starter. And it's not something to do some of the time. It's something to do all of the time. I've probably had at least 10, maybe 15 people who've gotten into this business either with me or with people that I brought into the business because they took my advice on this, and I could probably go through the list and pick them out, simply as a function of conversations that started around our consumption of water. And one of the big things I always tell people is, yeah, this looks like a lot of water, but the cool thing is, even if I don't finish it, I still end up twice as hydrated as the next guy that drinks all the water because of some unique properties of the water. And people are like, what? You know, explain that. So anyway, a product of the product just means literally carrying the water with you all the time. Which it's kind of this is probably the only direct sales product in the world that you can carry with you all the time and not have it look weird. And secondly, obviously, well, here's the other thing. I carry this with me every day. I carry a little snack size Ziploc baggie with all my vitamins for the day, and in here every morning are 5 Ukons. So, you know, I'll be in meetings, I'll be in, you know, if I go out to lunch, particularly with meals, I'll go to lunch and I'll pull this out of my pocket and I'll take some pills. It's a conversation starter, but it feels so natural that people don't even realize what's happening. And the cool thing when you do it that way is you end up finding people who they're already sort of, you know, to some degree, they're already centers of influence in that sphere that you're trying to operate within. Here's what I mean. It's great to sign up somebody that's really hungry and looking for an opportunity and wants to make some money, because that person may go out and hustle and scrap and break all kinds of records, and that's great. But for this product, it's really great if you can sign up somebody who's already a well-respected, established person in, say, the health and wellness space. One of the people who is in the business with me is a yoga instructor, and she's actually someone who came to my house to give my wife and I a yoga lesson, and afterwards we offered her some water, and from there it just, I mean, and she is someone who teaches classes, has a studio, she's active at a resort here in town. You know, she's kind of the in residence yoga instructor. That's a center of influence that could ultimately yield hundreds of sales very naturally over the course of years, and obviously thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in commissions to her sponsor. With very little effort. It's not such a you know, forced thing, and I even told her at the time when I offered her the water, and then she started quizzing me, and we started talking about the science, and she was talking about fascia and the intracellular water and extracellular water, and how the fascia and the sheaths around the muscle need to be lubricated, and I was able to sort of meet her halfway with that conversation and talk about the properties of the water, and which gets to the whole thing I always say, which is you really got to know your stuff. There's no substitute for just knowledge and being able to, you know, carry on the high level conversation with whoever you're talking to from whatever angle they're coming from, whether it's the business or the health side of things. But anyway, and I told her at the time, I said, listen, I'm sharing this with you because I'm really passionate about the health side of this product, but I'm going to tell you, you know, there's meetings here in town. There's a group that actually does a hotel meeting about once a month. If this is something you decide to pursue, I would encourage you to go there. There's some really you know, there's some really well-informed and highly motivated people there who actually have more time to devote to this business than I do. I really am just, mainly here because I don't want my family to die of cancer. And I basically told her, if this is something you decide you want to do, go talk to them. I'm fine with it. I don't want to be your sponsor. Go buy it from someone else because they can give you more time. Well, what do you think happened? They call it the takeaway, or let them come to you, whatever you want to call it. Of course, when she decided after a few more visits, and she said that she actually found herself starting to crave the water, who do you think she wanted to get involved with? So that being a product of the product, I think, is the most efficient way to promote your business, because you can always be promoting it while always doing other things. And then you don't have to break your day into time spent doing this, time spent doing that, and then time spent doing my business, which is exclusive of all other things that I can do during that time. I mean, that's great if you have the time, but like I said, and I'm just going off of numbers, I'm going off of what I hear, is that the biggest thing I hear from people is they don't have the time to do the business. And what that tells me is they're not leveraging the time that they have, because you can actually be representing this product at almost all times while doing almost all other things. I mean, I carry a jug of water. I had parent-teacher meetings for my kids. I bring a jug of water. That's not a weird thing. If I showed up with a bottle of vitamins, or I showed up with some patches that I was slapping on my skin, or I showed up with magnetic energy bracelets, I don't know, maybe that wouldn't be that weird, but showing up with a jug of water is not a weird deal at a parent-teacher conference. My point is, you can be living this business and living this product all over the place all the time. Now, the next thing I want to say is, how many of you guys have seen or heard this? Make sure you can see. Okay. Anybody ever seen that, AIDA? If you haven't, go on YouTube and search for Glengarry Glen Ross and watch Alec Baldwin's hilarious, although slightly or majorly offensive speech on sales, where he talks about AIDA. Anyway, attention, interest, decision, action. It's kind of it's one of the major sort of adages of sales theory, that you have to get people's attention, and you only have that's a split-second thing to get somebody's attention. It's like the Dentyne commercial. You never get a second chance to make that first impression. But then once you have it, you have to keep it. You have to generate interest, and that ultimately leads to a decision. And then you can't let people linger in the decision phase too long. You have to quickly move them to action. That's the AIDA theory. Well, to me, IDA, those can all be fairly well systematized. I think that once you get somebody's attention, you can say, hey, watch this video. And if it's a compelling video and it's well produced, let's say if it's any of the stuff that's been put out by PowerLife Pro, especially if you haven't seen some of the new stuff coming out, it's there's a lot of powerful ways with this business, and honestly, there's hundreds of videos on YouTube that you can use to generate interest. Decision, I always say, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. As long as you properly and sufficiently expose the right person to this business or this product, then a certain percentage of those people are going to make the decision, and you need to just collect the decision and then immediately move them to action. And all of that is kind of what PowerLife Pro is set up to do. But attention, especially in the world we live in, I think attention is the hardest part of AIDA. How do you get people's attention? How do you stand out? And I'll tell you this, I'm married, and I'm happily married, and I have just had my 4th child, and I am by no means in anywhere close to the dating scene. But I was hanging out with a friend of mine I guess a couple weeks ago. She's actually helping me with my book. I'm writing a book, and she's a ghostwriter and an editor, and she's helping me with my book. But anyways, we were talking, and she was showing me, I had never seen it before, but she was showing me this thing called Tinder, which is like a dating app on your phone where you swipe right or you swipe left, depending on if you like the person or not. And what struck me is that, and I'd never seen it before, I've heard about it in pop culture and everything, but what struck me about it is there are so many people on there. It's like insane. She said when she put her profile up, within, I don't know, like a day, she had like 97 people that had messaged her, saying, hey, let's talk, let's, flirt, let's whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think back when what I remember of dating, which I didn't date very long. I didn't have that phase of my life last very long, but it was pre-mobile apps, and it was really even pre-internet sites. And it was like, man, how do you meet someone? How do you find someone? Or you go to a bar, or you go to a restaurant, or you go to a club, or whatever, and you got to scope them out and go talk to someone. It was like a scarcity thing. Now in the world we live in now, everything is flipped. There's just like oversaturation. Want to go on a date? Okay, post a profile, and 24 hours later, you have 97 people trying to go on a date with you. It's like, craziness, right? How do you stand out? So maybe dating's not the greatest analogy, but hopefully you get my point. How do you stand out in this world that we live in? How do you get people's attention? Well, I think it comes down to one thing. And this is really key for me and I think it's key for a lot of people, the people who don't have time, because you don't have time to go around getting people's attention. You can't stand on the side of the road with the signboard saying, hey, come, buy one, get one free, whatever. Like we're busy. Well, here's how you get people's attention without taking the time to get people's attention. Surprise them. Be surprising. Be unexpected. A lot of people ask me, I've literally been asked, I've had people say, why don't you get dressed up to go to work? And this may be totally, I don't know, I may alienate some people by saying this. I know there's kind of an old guard who doesn't subscribe to this theory. But this is what I wore to work today. I wore my Pink Floyd t-shirt. I wore my Lulu jogging shorts. I'm not actually even wearing any shoes. I did wear flip-flops before everyone left. I don't want to get any hygiene code violations. And I come to work and I lead the charge here. We have about 50 employees here in the office. People have said, why don't you get dressed up? And it's like, because first of all, I'm a lot more comfortable like this, and when I'm comfortable, I do better work. Secondly, because when people say, I'm going to go meet the CEO, they're expecting to meet a guy in a suit and tie. This is why Steve Jobs did billion-dollar product launches in his turtleneck. I personally think that was a calculated thing. It was part of his brand. It was part of Apple's brand. It was part of the sort of rebellious spirit of Apple. But let me tell you, I'll bet you, when Steve Jobs showed up for his first job interview at, what his first, let's say he was applying to go work at, IBM as an intern, I'll bet you he wore a tie, because in that case he was maybe and actually this is not true of Steve Jobs, because he had his whole wilderness period when he was young, and he's been a maverick from the beginning. But when you're 19 years old and you're going to apply, what are you trying to do? You're trying to look 20 years older, 30 years more mature, and $5 million richer than you actually are, right? You're trying to be unexpected. You're trying to, wow them with how beyond your years you are. But I think that there's an opportunity to be really, really laid back and to be really, really Um, what would the word be? Be really, really not intimidating. That's not the word I'm looking for. Be really disarming. I think there's an opportunity to be really disarming with people. I mean, obviously you want to bathe, and then absolutely shock the hell out of them with how much you know about what you do. Where they go, and a lot of this comes from the fact I used to be a musician, and as a jazz musician, we kind of have this like rebellious spirit where, you know, you go into a jazz club and you'll see guys with tattoos and long hair, and guys that look like they, you know, play grunge rock or just sit around and smoke weed all the time. And then they get on their instrument and they will absolutely floor you with their technical facility, their understanding of really, really complex harmonies, things that blow classical musicians away in a lot of cases. And so I was a jazz musician growing up, or in my 20s, and I kind of have this spirit of like, I'm gonna sneak up on you, and you are gonna be bowled over by how much I know. And by how well I can communicate it to you in whatever time I have and whatever time you give me. And I think there's someone else in this community that does it, honestly, I'll say probably better than me, and that I have tremendous respect for, and that's Dave Sharp. Honestly, Dave Sharp, as powerful as he is, and as compelling as he is, one of the things that makes him so powerful and so compelling is that at first you don't expect it. And so what I would suggest is look for how you can show up in your life in a way that is not what people are expecting. Because so many times I think that we think in order to make the sale, in order to attract people, in order to be appealing to people, we need to be what they're expecting. When in fact, I think that subconsciously people want someone to show up and say, to hell with your expectations. Here's the opposite of that. It's contrarianism. It works in investing, and I think it works in life. And I certainly know it works in dating and relationships because I'm married up. My wife is amazing, and I don't know. How I pulled that off, I have no idea, other than I think I just wasn't like all the goobers that were really going after her. So anyways, it works in this business too. And then you get people's attention, and then the rest is long. And then it gets to the other part of what I want to talk about, and I'm going to get cut short, so I'll have to do another one of these to really get into this, because I'm going to have to gloss over the surface. But once you get people's attention, and like I said, my way of doing that is to move quickly, to catch people off guard, to catch people by surprise, to be a product of the product, to always be representing, but never overtly, almost never overtly. But then to move to interest, decision, and action, that you want to systematize. You don't have time to spend a lot of time on interest, decision, and action. Those things, you just got to have systems for that. And so here, I guess, if I was prepared to spend about 40 minutes on those systems, and instead I've got to spend 5 or 10 because I have another webinar I have to get on at the top of the hour. So here's how I'm going to sort of summarize or maybe introduce my approach to the systems for automating the process of generating interest, automating the process of collecting a decision, and creating the decision that you want, or at least encouraging the decision that you want, and then automating the process of moving people to action. Here's how I'm going to kind of introduce that and leave a cliffhanger for fleshing it out on another session. First of all, it takes resources to create systems, and PowerLife Pro is an amazing system. But if you think that, let me just state the obvious. Not every single person that uses PowerLife Pro makes $1 million. Not every single person that uses PowerLife Pro even meets the goal that they set out to achieve when they started using PowerLife Pro. What's the difference? Well, some people are going to take PowerLife Pro and see it for what it is, which is a toolkit, and they're going to say, what can I build with this toolkit? And that doesn't mean that everybody's finished product is going to be the same. Honestly, there's no way that we could have a community of thousands of marketers that all had the exact same business. That would be ludicrous. But that doesn't mean that we can't all use the exact same tools to build our business. I drive down the road, I see 1,000 different houses, but they were all built pretty much with the same tools. Even to a very specific level, they can all be built with stucco. They can all be built with, Tyvek wrapping by DuPont. They can all be built with the same treated lumber. They can all be built with, Romex wiring. Like it doesn't just have to be very vague. I mean, you can have very specifically the same tools and still use it to build an infinite permutation of different finished products. And that's what I think we're all doing here in creating our businesses. But to get from having these tools to having a really profitable, lucrative, powerful, mostly automated business, you're going to have to invest. You're going to have to invest time, or you're going to have to invest money, or you're going to have to invest some combination of the two. And investing time and or investing money doesn't necessarily just mean investing time in building the business with Power Life Pro, and it doesn't just mean investing money in buying leads or buying traffic. Honestly, how did I get to 6A in 6 months? I didn't. I got to 6A in 21 years because that's how long I've been an entrepreneur. And I got to 6A in 7 years because that's how long I've been in the direct sales industry. And I got to 6A in about 10 years because that's how long I've been playing around with online stuff. And I got to 6A in 3 years because that's how long I've actually owned a marketing agency, and I've learned how to not only do marketing, but how to fulfill it at a high level, how to build an organization, how to have employees, how to manage a team, how to service marketing for others, not just myself. So there's been all of these layers of my learning curve that have involved huge investments of time and money. But yet, so it's easy for me to say, well, really, Power Life or Enagic was something I did very easily, or I did in a very limited amount of time. But it's all a function of the build up to it, right? I mean, that's like somebody saying, oh, well, I hit a 400-foot home run. I just swing the bat. King Griffey Jr. says, oh, I just swing the bat. Well, how many practice swings went into that one easy-looking swing of the bat? Or Tiger Woods swinging a golf club? Years and years. And so my point is, well, I guess before I go any further with that, some people may not like what I just said, but I'm pretty sure you would like me less if I lied to you and just told you what you wanted to hear. Because this is the truth. This is how I got to 6A in 6 months. Is I was really, really good at some of the basics of marketing coming into this. Because the other part of what I was asked to explain is, how did I get to 6A in 6 months without any existing downline, without any pre-existing list? I didn't have anyone to blast to. I didn't have anyone to market to from an old business. I had been completely retired from direct sales, from network marketing, from online marketing. I hadn't done anything other than build this local marketing agency for the last 3 years. So how did I do that in 6 months? Well, it was because I had a really, really good foundation. And I was able to do some things without having to relearn, to go through. There's kind of like a riding the bike element to a lot of this, where you just sort of know how to do some things that you don't have to relearn. And I'm telling you this because if that's not the situation for you, then you need to be really, really kind to yourself. You need to be really, really forgiving and understanding of yourself. And you need to also realize it is a privilege to get to do what we do. The thing that you are pursuing in this business is something that is, I would argue, has a mystical quality to it. It has almost a spiritually cathartic quality to it. I mean, we throw around these words like time freedom and financial freedom and lifestyle by design, but what percentage of the world really gets to do it? Okay, I mean, I would say anything in the world that is only achieved by 1% of 1% of 1% of the world. Let's say out of 7 billion people, that 500,000 people in the world, or it's probably more than that, 5 million people in the world, less than 1 out of 1,000, truly get to live a life where they are not only encumbered by concerns about money, but they are also liberated by complete control of their time. Something that is that rare is not something that it's not something we're entitled to. It's not something we can just sort of demand. It's something that is so special. It's a butterfly. It's something that has to be respected and appreciated and valued and honored and sacrificed for. And I think there's a tendency sometimes to be impatient, not because we're bad, mean-spirited people or we're negative people, but just because we have so many competing concerns and so much pressure and so much frustration maybe with other parts of our life that we sometimes lose sight of the fact that this is what everybody wants and a few people get, and therefore it has to be earned. So here's what I'll say to that as kind of my introduction to the system side of things that we'll get into next time. Because the way that you earn it is you figure out how to get people's attention, and then you move them into a system or a process that gets the result you want without you having to do a ton of heavy lifting. Because if you're having to do a ton of heavy lifting, you'll burn out. You can't physically go into a gym and lift weights for 12 hours straight, much less for 12 hours straight, 7 days in a row, 20 weeks in a row. You'll tear every muscle in your body. You have to be able to get the result with a little bit of resistance and a whole lot of recovery, while in the case of weightlifting, the body is the system. Most of the work, you build muscle when you're not lifting weights. You want your business to be the same way. You put in your time in the gym building the system, and then the time away from the gym, the recovery time, that's when the system is doing the work and you're getting stronger, financially in this case. And so here's what I'll say. Specifically in terms of Enagic, one of the things I see is people wanting the payoff too soon. I see a lot of people get to 2A, especially I see people get to 3A, because on the surface, 10 is a lot. People go, man, I got 10 deals now. Man, and it's like, yeah, you got 10 deals, but this is a different kind of business. This is, and I'm going to wrap this up here really quick and just say this. The network marketing industry has typically been organized around fast incentives, hypey, big payoffs, motivating people to come out with a bang and kind of try to eat the elephant in 5 bites in like 90 days, and then you feel like you've made it. Enagic, they know how good their product is, and maybe it's just like a stylistic or a aesthetic or almost a cultural choice, but they've kind of been like, we're not going to get all rah-rah, like hypey. We're just going to take the long approach. This is a marathon, and we're not going to, they don't have. Look at what you earn on a sale when you're a 1A compared to what you earn on a sale when you're a 6A. They're not trying to sort of in a cheap way hook you into taking massive action really fast. They're actually completely rewarding the long game, almost to the point where it makes you scratch your head, like, hey, why aren't they making me run a little faster here in the beginning? But it's just because I think they know how good what they have is, and it's been around for 42 years, and it's going to be around for 42 more. So all that to say, when you hit 3A, smile, take a breath, keep going. I would say once you get to 4A, take yourself out to dinner. You get a treat. Once you get to 5A, maybe take the family, go to a baseball game. Have a big night out. Once you get to 6A, I just got to 6A, it's cool, like, it's awesome, but like, we're so conditioned to think that success in network marketing is this big thing that you arrive at, and that the really successful people arrive at it in this massive way, like there's a celebration for, a returning war hero in the ancient Roman Empire or something. Like, it's not like that. You just keep going, and I think that when you have the systems doing all the work, you're not so much looking for that big payoff, because when you're doing all the heavy lifting, you want that big moment of release, that big moment where you feel like it all comes to fruition. But when you've got systems doing the work, honestly, it's a lot easier to bide your time because you're not exhausted along the way. And so that's, I think, going to be where I'll leave us. And next session, I'll message Abby and say, hey, we had some technical issues. I lost time. I want to get back on the schedule, because I want to pick up where we are and say, how do we create those systems? How do we take the PLP tools and create those systems so that we can ultimately do the interest, decision, and action piece of the business without wearing ourselves out, and get where we want to be, whether it's in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is. It's still a lot better than most other options for most people. So anyway, thanks so much. See you on the next one.